Don't put your finger in your mouth. Try without your finger. Ka.
Chi. Chi って人になっちゃうんだよね。
Yeah, let me hear. Ka. Say ka. 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 See your tongue? Don't go ta. Put your tongue inside your mouth. Ka. Ka. Oh, a little better. Ka. Ka. Getting better. Ki. Ki. Oh, a little better. She's getting better.
Chi.
Peace, family. My name is Brother Reggie, and the first thing that I want to do is welcome you to the Eastern Region Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization ASCAC Conference this October 21st and October 22nd of 2016. This year's conference will be Rebuilding the African Community. That is the theme, Rebuilding the African Community, and it will be in Syracuse, New York, and you're all invited. And at the end of this short presentation, I'll give you some more contact information, and so that you could plan and hope to make this conference. I prepared a short presentation on a kind of dialogue or discussion several members in ASCAC were having as to whether we can use the K for community or C for community. Is the K African or is the C political correct? Now, for many of you, probably that's not a big thing, and in one sense, it's not a big thing. But what's behind it is that can African people rescue, restore their African culture and make the world that they live in, or define the world that they live in? And I think that that is more of the issue in this conversation, whether it's so-called politically correct or it's African correct. So let me start with this presentation. I hope that it's informative to you and you can listen to my argument. So I'm doing this educational video to add to the dialogue whether the letter K should be used in certain words, and particularly works sacred to us, in our intellectual warfare. I'm particularly concerned because one of our members posed a question on the usage of the letter K to replace the letter C in the word community. So K for community rather than C for community. And it seemed that he was told that this was not scholarly, not conventional, or not politically correct. And I argue, if we have basis to do it that is aligned with our culture, is this the meaning of our work? So I want to enter into a dialogue and challenge those that presented a summary judgment to this brother's wisdom. I want to remind our scholars and advisors that from the tradition that we sit, we often use the teachings of Ptah in our decision making. Ptah said this in his maxims: take advice from the ignorant as well as from the wise, since there is no single person who embodies perfection, nor any craftsman who has reached the limits of excellence. In my work, I have learned much from the grassroots, for they have been our best worker bees. Their role is not to be the most scholarly or learned, but they are a gauge in which we measure our success. Meaning that when you look at the African community, the normal and regular people, where they can rise to in their righteousness is the gauge, is the ceiling. And so we gauge the common people to see how well our community is doing. The Nasut Bidi, or the leader, is the organizer of the bees. I believe that the brother who brought this conversation to us, Brother Ross Simeon Anu, had a point in his usage for the letter K in the community, in the word community. And this presentation will explain why his wisdom to me is profound. Let us not forget that the peasant in Nile Valley culture is a historic and well-read literature on a peasant named Kunanu. He was wronged in his community, but he spoke so eloquently in the courts on his trial that his trial was delayed so that the Nasut Bidi, the leader or the so-called pharaoh, could listen, sit at Kunanu's feet and be his scribe, write down his every word. Our community is best when the normal people represent Ma'at, Sia, Hu, and Heka. Many of our ancestors in the Nile use the sound K in their name. We have Kununanu, we have Neteket, we have Menkeri, we have Akhenaten, we have Khufu, we have Khafra, and many, many names leading up to even Taharka. Now, please keep in mind, as I remind our organization that our ancestors and former President Dr. Jacob Carruthers, who is now Mak Karu, truer voice, posed to us how we should engage in intellectual warfare, and Dr. Sheka Anta Diop taught us the necessary skills. This is best said by Dr. Joseph Ben Levi on a paper about intellectual warfare. He said, Dr. Sheikha Anta called the necessary plural-disciplinary skills encompassing what he described as three factors, the historic, the linguistic, and the psychological. This has vast impact for the field of Africana studies. African-centered scholars engaging in what Dr. Jacob H. Carruthers called intellectual warfare are struggling against well-financed and organized European intellectual armies preparing to do battle with us to the end. In order to combat these challenges, African scholars must be grounded in African-centered theory, methodology, and pedagogy. Now, I would add that sometimes we must engage ourselves with self-criticism. I point to the organization and to others to reread both the intellectual warfare of Dr. Jacob H. Carruthers and the battle for ancient Nubia as a foundational paradigm for Africana studies, thoughts and reflections by Dr. Joseph Ben Levy, and read the intellectual warfare by Dr. Jacob Carruthers, who is my Kuru. Now, the conversation on the usage of K is not new at all. Scholars born on the continent of Africa and in the Americas, black scholars, have discussed the usage. I want to point to an analysis by Dr. Kwame Nat-Tam. He said, according to African-American poet and writer Haki Madhubuti in his From Plan to Planet, 1973, there are basically 4 reasons to spell Africa with a K. 1, most vernacular traditional languages on the continent spell Africa with a K. K is germane to Africa. 2, Europeans, particularly the Portuguese and the British, polluted African languages by substituting C whenever they saw K or heard the K sound, B as in Congo, and Congo, K, Congo, to C, Congo. Accra and Accra, Accra with a K to Accra with a C. Conakry in Guinea to Conakry with a C. By substituting B, by substituting Q whenever they saw QW. No European languages outside of the Dutch and German had the hard C sound. Thus we see the Dutch and Azania calling and spelling themselves Afrikaners. We are not certain of the origin of the name Africa, but we are sure that the name spelled with C came to use when Africans were dispersed over the world. There the K symbolizes our coming back together again. The K3, the K symbolizes the kind of lingua africana coming into use along with such words and phrases as Habarigani, Osafeyo, Uhua, Asante, together constituting one political language, although coming from more than one African language. 4, as long as African languages are translated, written into English, the European alphabet will be used. This is a problem. The letter K, as with the letter C, is part of the alphabet and at some point must be totally discounted with the original name of Africa used. The fact that the Boers, peasants in Azania use the K as in Africa to represent the hard C sound demonstrates one of the confinements of the alphabet. Azania is the original name for South Africa. The author says, Shem Hotep, I go in peace. Again, this author or writer is Dr. Nantambo, and he is an associate professor at the Department of Africana Studies at Kent State University. And I thank him for that important insight on the use of K in the name of the continent of Africa, because it has bearings to many other words and concepts, as the author implied, that K is germane to Africa, the hard C, the K. Now, with these points made, our organization has led the way for our community in building Medu Nature language skills and to return to its usage in translating text for our people and to its usage in speaking the language in our work. We owe a great debt of gratitude to Dr. Reggie, Amen, and others who have led the path to us understanding the language as we do now. From the cosmology of the ancients of the Nile, the sound, the hard C or the K sound was among the first sounds or names of the primordial principles and forces. These primordial principles and forces was Imen, Imenet, Nun, Nunet, Ket, 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 and Hey, Ha, Het. We find the usage in describing darkness and the potential or the antitheses of darkness in this cosmology with Ket and Ket, Ket. And the whole entire grouping of the 8 was called the Kimenu. In other languages, the Octad. But the Kimenu has the K, and Ket, 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 darkness and its opposite, is part of this union. And the Kimenu means the 8. Here, in Nile Valley culture, at its most primal cosmology, the Kimenu cosmology, also called the Hermopolis cosmology, we find the K, and that is should be very insightful to us and to allow us to think deeply that among the first sounds, the first thoughts in creation was the K, and this whole union is called the Kimenu. The elements of the Kimenu cosmology of our ancestors is the precursor to what the Europeans will create a science called quantum physics. And, there we go again with this QK hard C sound. Here listed is in the Medu how it is often written, the 8 with the Nu and the C to represent Hermopolis, and then the 8 dashes to represent the 8 netures or principles. Dr. Jacob Carruthers in 1984 in his Essays in Ancient Egyptian Studies was the first that I know of an African scholar to discuss this early cosmology of the Kimenu with us, and we owe him great thanks for many things, being our president founding president of ASCAC, and to be for being such a great leader and a great teacher, and certainly a great scholar. We say to him, Mat Keru, he is true a voice. So here what I have shown you is the significance of the K in Nile Valley culture, because it is at its most primal point, and so that is a very significant point. But let me continue with my argument on the usage of K. Now, in the uniliterals, or the language of the Melanated, the single sound of the alphabet of what we call the hieroglyphs or the Medu, let's look at the glyphs that make the K sound, right? So here we have a common source that you can find in Wikipedia, so you can search, and on the bottom I have the source file. The only problem with this diagram is it doesn't give you the actual Gardner codes for people who study Medu, but these uniliterals and biliterals are pretty common, and so I don't see that as a significant problem. But K, the K sound, the hard C sound, is a basket or a bowl with a handle. The Ka sound is a bilateral, the K and the A sign, and it's two arms stretched out for praise. The Ka'at sound is a man seated with a basket on his head, and then we have the Ka, which is the bull. So we say Ka-nat, the strong bull. And so we see that as a titulary in many of the descriptions of the Nosut on the stelas. And then we see the Kesa, the Kasi, which is the man bending down. So here are some uses of the letter K in the Medu Necher in its in the section that makes up words and makes up ideas. So now looking at the uniliterals, they are the basic sounds that form more complex sounds such as biliterals and triliterals such as Kemet, Kemenu, Kiru. In addition, these words are in fact, as I said, ideograms, meaning that they as symbols describe context and help in describing what the Medu Necher words mean. And you can see them as ideograms, meaning they represent what they look like, or you can see them as determinatives, meaning they help in a string of Medu Necher symbols separate one word from another word. In English, we use language contexts like when we talk about like fill, well, which fill? Fill the person, fill as feelings, feeling something, or filling up something. We use language contexts to understand what fill that we're talking about. In the Medu Necher, we use ideograms and determinatives to help us know what is the context of the word. So we're going to examine the K sign, which is one of the important uniliterals. There is another K sound, which is kek, which is the placenta, which is KH, which I did not list. So we are again posing, can we use the word K in certain contexts in the to replace the English language for a better understanding of the word? That is pretty much what I am posing. So let's look at the etymology of the word community. Now, what is problematic with our thinking as we rescue, restore, and reconstruct our history is that we don't know what's ours and what is theirs. Meaning we don't know what belongs to the African civilization as it dispersed to the European civilizations, and we claim many things that we believe is theirs when it is really ours. Now again, we are arguing the issue of community, and where does that root word begin, and to see if we can source it to have something to do with African culture, and if so, it would probably most likely again have its roots in the hard C sound, which is a K. Now, when we look at the etymology of the word community, so if you look at the word, the etymology of the word community, which we are looking at, if you look closely at the definitions, I'm not going to read them all, but it does not really have an ancient root, at least described here. So if it does have an ancient root, then it probably goes to the Romans and the Greeks for the beginning of what the word is of community. As if the Romans and Greeks themselves knew what a community was. History says that the Nile Valley culture spread, sourced to Dr. George G.M. James, throughout the area, and ultimately Greek, Cretians, and other Ionians and other groups of that period went into the Nile Valley for their mystery system. So if I wanted to source an ancient root for where community lies, then I would look at the Nile Valley. Now, I am going to show you now, and again, keep in mind that a cup, what it does is group items together to make it form a community. But let's just keep that concept and let's just keep it going. Again, now if we look at the alphabet from A to Z, and if we apply Brother Reggie's Melanated chart, when I teach the Melanated, you will see that the alphabet that we use today is actually, it goes from A to Z, but the Nile Valley African alphabet goes to A to Z. And we know that the Phoenicians dispersed the written language to groups like the Greeks and the Romans and the others, and they got that information from the Nile Valley. So let's look at this next chart. This next chart, here you see a language chart of languages. And you see Egyptian and hieratic moving to Phoenician to the later equivalents, which is Greek, Roman, and Hebrew. Now, my point is that what is really politically correct? And what is the meaning of our work? Right? The meaning of our work is to force Europeans to source what they say, rather than for us to simply look at when our scholars think that we have to use them as a standard. So I'm really concerned about the thinking of individuals when they talk about what's political correct or following convention. Whose convention? See, our own scholars make huge mistakes, but sometimes our common people are sometimes freer from the indoctrination to get a degree such as a master's or a PhD. I mean, to get a master's or a PhD in the European world, even when there are black scholars, you are forced to use conventions or not pass. And sometimes our own scholars use that, that thinking, that indoctrination, in places where it should not be. And this is one of the places where it should not be, because my presentation hopefully has shown you the roots of languages, ideograms, and determinatives. So I'm going to move on to some other points, but I'm going to say right now, Simeon Anu was absolutely correct. Here you see the this particular author looks at the now basket is a bowl, right, with a handle, because it really couldn't be a basket with a handle, because that wouldn't work. So it has to be a bowl or a cup with a handle. Now, this is what European scholars do all the time, right? They won't say cup, because see, cup will lead you to community. See, like there are words in the English language that are Nile Valley words that have not changed over the time. For example, the desert in English is the desert or deseret in Nile Valley. See, there are much of Egyptian or Nile Valley grammar becomes English and the Romance language grammar. But see, they don't tell you that, and so our own scholars sometimes get into our own scholars sometimes berate our own people or poison our own people with their indoctrinations when if you did a deeper study, you will find that the Europeans sourced nothing to Africa, and they forced us to source everything to Europe. So when we write and we think, in order to free our minds, sometimes we have to think in ideas, sometimes we have to think in symbols, sometimes we have to think in things that are ancient to Africans and foreign to Europeans. And this is how we rescue, reconstruct our civilization and restore it. So I'm going to move on to some more points to show you that the hard C or the K is proper in the way Africans think. Because if I was talking to an African on a continent and I was trying to communicate these ideas, I would have to think like him as he would have to think like me. We would have to think together, and it would be best if we can show some continuity of African culture. And all of our scholars, Diop and Obenga, and all of them show this continuity of African culture, which we, even in the diaspora, coming from the African continent, coming from slavery, having concepts like voodoo and hoodoo and other derivatives, Ifa, derivatives that our great-great-great-grandmothers taught us, that it's on graveyards, it's written down. My point is that we have to be very careful as we restore, reconstruct, and recover African civilization, and we teach it to our own. So let's go to the next slide. So this gives you an idea of the etymology of the word community in which we're working with. Now, let's look at the Melanated symbol for the K again. So here we have K, and it is the bowl or the basket with the handle. Now, it is an ideogram that gives us an idea of the usage of the word in the Melanated. And so you can see that it is a holder of objects, something that groups together things, carries things. So in this particular case, one can see that the ideogram of the cup can hold or contain a group of materials, whether common or not, a group. And that's very similar to a community. But now let's return to the usage that Ras Simeon Anu posed, who is a common citizen of Kemet, a Remet. He simply posed the usage of K for community instead of C in community because he thought it would give it more African conceptualization, maybe more African spirituality, more of a theme that would help us go to the conference. And I think that he's right, and I'm going to tell you why. So now, when we look at the Melanated and we look at the words, the Melanated gives us the following glyph. Ketu, for, and it means community or common people. So Sin Ras Simeon Anu was absolutely correct in thinking that we could restore, rescue, reconstruct our culture linguistically by using K in community. Brings us closer to a Nile Valley thinking and an African thinking, not because it's fashionable, but because it actually is correct. So here you see the glyph of Ketu, you see the bowl of grouping K, you see the loaf, you see the squiggly line for U, Seketo U, and you see the people, the man and the woman of Kemet, and you see the plural, the Ketu. And again, the definition is common people, and I am adding that it also means community. The source for the glibs, transliteration and definition is Vickers Dictionary, but you could probably find this in Budge's dictionary, Faulkner's dictionary, Gardner's dictionary, and a number of other dictionaries. That Ketu means a community, and it's with a K, and it is absolutely right. Now, if I was teaching a Melanated class and I wanted to get people to use K for community, I might replace the K with the glyph of the sound K and just write the English words community. Some people may have some problems with that, but as a pathway to understanding Melanated, I don't see a problem with this. So if I wrote on a flyer this symbol with the basket and immunity to make it K community, I don't think that I would be wrong. And to make this even more profound, the people of themselves as a community, as a black community, male and female, of citizens of Remet, they called themselves the black community, or the people of the black community, and they called themselves Kemetu with a K. And so here is the glyph of the crocodile, the black crocodile living in Happy River, right? And that river overflows. So either it's the black from the black crocodile, or it is the silk that is that overflows from the Happy Nile. But nevertheless, there is the symbol of Kem, which is the crocodile skin, or some people can say that it's the charcoal, the T, so Kemet, the people, and then plural, the three strokes, the plural. So that's my argument. I believe that Simeon Anu was absolutely correct in posing that we should use the K as the others have said. Dr. Haki Madhubuti and others have posed the usage of K in Africa, and for some of our sacred words we should use the word K because it has a deeper connection when it comes to Africa. So these type of ideas live in the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization. I've been a member of the ASCAC since roughly 1985, planning the conference, the 1986 conference in New York, and as a student working with Professor Leonard Jeffries and Professor Small and the First World Alliance, and certainly with Dr. Joseph Benjo Cannon, and Dr. John Henry Clark, and Professor Scobie, and Shashi McIntyre, and many, many, many others in the Eastern region, as we planned and built the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization. Special thanks to Leo Downs, who was a great, he was an ancestor, but he was a great study group manager. Sister Latrella Thornton, who was the secretary of the study groups, another great person who is now on the board of ASCAC. But the ASCAC itself, Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization, is a place where scholars, academics, students, and the community can discuss these great questions that revolve around Nile Valley culture as we try to rescue, reconstruct African culture so that we can live an African-centered life and be prepared to do intellectual warfare whenever we need it for our families and for our community and for our people, so that we could liberate our minds, as the First World Alliance would say, free our African minds. So one of the issues that I think that is up for discussion now is that is discussing the word Africa. Now Valley culture gives us actually the oldest name for the land that would be called the continent once people knew what a continent was. But the land where African people lived, and you have to understand that the Nile Valley was a place that people came to, the Happy Valley, from the south. They came to the Happy Valley from the west of Africa, right? It was a gathering place of multiple groups of Africa. Some of the Africans came from North Africa. It was a grouping place. And so the place that the oldest word that they most likely call the land of Africa from where people were coming from was Ta-Nefer or Neferta, meaning the good land or the beautiful land. Ta-Nefer or Neferta. And there is many places in the Nile Valley where you see the Africans calling the place Ta-Nefer. And so I pose to you that we, even though the word Africa is known throughout the world, that we take a step further and rename the continent of Africa the good land, the beautiful land. And we have much in our literature to prove that if that is not the oldest name for the land, it certainly is the oldest written name for the land. So I'm going to close. I'm going to give you the flyer for this conference. Again, this is not an official welcome to the conference. This will be one of probably several invitations to the conference, but I thought I'd use this study to invite you to the conference. So I'm going to say Dua, Shimon Hotep, Anuk, Saber Reggie. So I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to leave in peace, and I am your instructor, Brother Reggie. That's what I said in the meta-lecture. So let me just show you the flyer and the details. Eastern Region Conference, ASCAC, Rebuilding the African Community, Friday, October 21st, 2016, from 4 to 9. Saturday, October 22nd, 2016, from 8 a.m. in the morning to 9 p.m. at the Believers Chapel City Church, 1640 South Avenue in Syracuse, New York, 13207. For hotel accommodations, contact the Ramada Inn, 6555 Old Colima Road South, East Syracuse, New York. And the phone number there is 315-437-2761. Youth under 14 and under are free. Students and seniors are $10. Members are $20. Non-members are $25. For more information, please contact Brother Ross, Simeon Anu at 315-395-1316. Sister Twiggy, 315-395-2611. Our President of the Eastern Region, Brother Modell, you can contact him at 716-715-6559. And if you are a vendor, I'd love for you to come out and to vend. The vending fee contract is $50, and you can contact Joanne Peters at 716-856-3317. Again, Dua, Waz Jed, Uncle Jasaneb, Shimon Hotel. And thank you for the time that you took out for this presentation. And look out for more presentations like this from a variety of people as we rescue, restore, reconstruct African civilization. And ASCAC has been a leader for us in doing this great work as we as participate, as Dr. John Henry Clark says, or have this great and mighty work. So peace, thanks for listening again, and see you at the conference.
Thank you.